Beloved, as we approach the 4th of July, I think it's important for us to stop and to reflect on what makes America free. We're going to talk about freedom. Over the next few days, people will talk about the Declaration of Independence, and we will celebrate that occasion. But I believe that in doing so, it is important to recognize that God is the foundation for freedom in America. Let me say it again. God is the foundation for freedom in America. If we keep celebrating the Declaration of Independence and we forget that it is God who is behind all of this, that it is God who is worthy to be praised, then we will be praising men or an event and forgetting the great foundation of Christianity that built this nation. What do I mean by this? Alexis de Tocqueville was a famous French statesman, historian, and social philosopher. Beginning in 1831, he toured America to observe the American people and their institutions. And Tocqueville wrote a book called Democracy in America. It has been described as the most comprehensive and penetrating analysis of the relationship between character and society in America that has ever been written. And here's what he wrote. I sought, he says, for the key to the greatness and genius of America in her harbors, in her fertile fields and boundless forests, in her rich mines and vast world commerce, in her public school system and institutions of learning. I sought for it in her democratic Congress and in her matchless Constitution. Not until I went into the churches of America and heard her pulpits flame with righteousness did I understand the secret of her genius and power. America is great because America is good. And if America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. Let me say it again. Tocqueville says the genius of America, the greatness of America, is not so much in her Constitution, her Congress. It's not in all of that. The greatness of an America is because America is good. And if America ever ceases to be good, he says, America will cease to be great. Tocqueville also wrote that religion in America may be regarded as the foremost of the political institutions of that country. For if it does not impart a taste for freedom, it facilitates the use of it. I do not know, he writes, whether all Americans have a sincere faith in their religion, for who can search the human heart? But I am certain that they hold it to be indispensable to the maintenance of republic institutions. Beloved, that's very important. Tocqueville understood America. He was a Frenchman. But his point was that without Christianity, America is nothing. Without God, America is not great. And her greatness lies in her churches, lies in the way people feel about God. This is what he wrote, and he was right on. But we can get quotations all we want to. What I want to do today is share with you so that you can share with your family, share with your children, that the greatness of America lies in its understanding of God. Indeed, America's democratic foundations are built on the concept of the biblical God. Not just any God, but the God of the Bible. And how am I going to show you this today? I want to go back to one of the first documents in American history, and that is the Mayflower Compact, which was written in 1620 by the Pilgrims while they were still on board the Mayflower. And some of you may remember from American history, that the Pilgrims were really the first Christian group to come here with the express purpose of building a Christian society. Now, obviously, Jamestown was the first settlement, but those were really explorers looking for financial gain. The Pilgrims, however, who come here in 1620, they are looking to build a society that honors God, that pleases God. And it is from that impetus, it is from that heart that the Pilgrims brought here, that America's goodness, America's understanding of godliness, America's understanding of democracy will come out of what the Pilgrims thought and how they built their society. And indeed, this document, the Mayflower Compact, will become the precursor, the progenitor, indeed the foundation of America's political institutions in many ways. In school they rarely ever talk about the Mayflower Compact, but it is the precursor. It is the document that stands beneath all the documents that will come later on and will describe and delineate our democracy. So listen to the Pilgrims and what they wrote before they got off that ship. In the name of God, amen. That's how the document begins, beloved. I love that. In the name of God, amen. They recognize that they're creating a covenant. And you can't create a covenant without bringing God into the midst. Look, even today, people try to create covenants without God. It's impossible. The marriage covenant must bear the supernatural witness. Covenants must be testified to, if they're biblical in any way, must be testified to by the presence of God. It is God who inaugurates covenants. And the Pilgrims come to America and they recognize that they're creating a society that is going to be covenantal. At the heart of that society is going to be God and their desire to please God. And all of their institutions must reflect the biblical God, His goodness, His character, His desires, His will. And so when they come to America, they're establishing a covenant that is an agreement between God and man and man. So they're going to say, look, we're going to create this in alliance with God and in alliance with each other. We're going to create the good society. And we're going to do this by setting up a partnership, if you would, where we serve and love God and where we bless and do good for each other. So they begin, in the name of God, amen. And I'm just going to read to you a bit of this. It's difficult reading, but pay attention, and I think you'll be blessed. We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign King James, by the grace of God, have undertaken for the glory of God an advancement of the Christian faith, a voyage to plant the first colony in these northern parts of Virginia. And that's where they thought they were. But do you see it, beloved? Do you see it? Do you hear it in their language? Do you hear God in their hearts? Listen again. We come by the grace of God, for the glory of God, and for the advancement of the Christian faith. They should be teaching this in the public schools, but they don't. That's why you must teach it to your children in their homes. When you've excluded God from the schools, you've excluded a proper understanding of history. American history cannot be taught without the understanding of the greatness and glory of God, because that's what filled the hearts of the men and women who made the society. That's the Mayflower Compact, 1620. Now I'm going to read to you from the Declaration of Independence, and this is our most popular document, right? But do we remember that the Declaration itself is filled with references to God, and necessarily so? Very necessary. Listen to this. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And so you see Jefferson in the very first paragraph says, we are appealing not only to the laws of nature, but to the God of nature. And don't be confused by this. Don't say, well, he meant some kind of supernatural deity. No. Jefferson fully understands his audience, and he can't come to the American people or to his colleagues with some nonsense. He himself might not have believed fully in the God, the Bible that we believe in, but Jefferson understood, and everyone back then understood, when you are referencing the God of nature, what you're saying that nature has order because it was created by God. And there is order and law, not chaos. And freedom comes because God puts freedom in the souls of men and in the nature of man. That without God there is no nature, and without God there is no liberty. God at the beginning, God at the end, God at the foundations. Jefferson continues, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Beloved, notice that he says all men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, I want to go back to that famous statement. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We're not going to argue about these truths, Jefferson said. They're self-evident. What is self-evident? Well, number one, all men are created equal. And to speak of creation means that you're speaking of a creator. That they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. In other words, the rights that men have. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That these rights were given to them, endowed, given to them by their Creator. And it's Jefferson's basic argument. Hey, listen, government didn't give you your rights, therefore government can't take them away. If Jefferson does not base his argument for unalienable rights on the person of God, then he cannot make an argument that Great Britain is wrong, because the argument can be made that this is the opinion of men. But he's saying it's not about what we say, it's about what God says. And our rights do not come from the King of England. We were born with these rights because we were created by a God who instilled these rights into us. The rights are unalienable or inalienable because they come from God. And there, beloved, at the very foundation of the American Republic is the concept that without God, you can't argue for rights that are unalienable, and unalienable means you can't take them away. If Jefferson doesn't make his argument on God, then the only way that rights come will be from government or some absurd, abstract concept of nature. But Jefferson doesn't do that. He says, no, this is not about mankind first, it's about God. And because we get our rights from God, we can stand proudly and say, we are not rebels. We're not rebelling against the king. We are fighting for the rights that God gave us. We are the true Christians. Later on, Patrick Henry, making the argument that America could defeat England, will say these incredible words. Listen to Henry. And we know this is the give me liberty or give me death speech, but listen to this incredible part of it. He says, besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature had placed in our power. Listen to the words of these men. God, he says, is on our side. And later on, he closes his speech by saying, forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Beloved, we need to tell our children that the foundations of the freedom we live in, that the foundations of our democracy are based on God. And if we don't do that, we'll find that one day we are living in a country with a democratic constitution, but without any freedom. Because as our country pushes towards ungodliness, we will lose the very freedom that God gave us. I would love for you to get a copy of not only today's message, but the documents I read. Some of you know I'm a school teacher by trade, as well as a pastor. I have my own after-school program. Write to me at pastorbv@gmail.com. That's pastor, PASTORBV@gmail.com. And just put Declaration of Independence. And I will send you a copy of this document so that you can use it for your children.